if we could see everybody else, that would be fascinating. All right, hey folks, welcome to our living rooms. Just a quick story. When I started streaming, the first time I hit start streaming, I got an error message in OBS. So there was a 50-50 chance this wasn't going to happen. So I'm glad it did now. So how's everybody doing? Seeing a lot of highs on chat. Everything looks good. All right, so we're just going to go straight ahead. For those of you tuning in, this is a updated roadmap stream. I am Nitocris, or Julia, the community manager for Neverwinter. I have been told that audio is still going in and out a little bit for me, and the cameras do get pixelated. I still haven't been able to figure out what's going on there, but I apologize for that. But yes, we had to revisit the roadmap that we introduced back in January, I believe it was. Feels so long ago. Because things have changed, things have shifted a little bit more than normal for gaming industry. And I am very happy to be joined by two awesome people. I will let them introduce themselves. So, Matt, I'll let you go first.
Matt Powers, I'm the lead producer on Neverwinter.
That's it?
That's it, really? Okay. Jared, your turn.
Here's lead systems designer on the forums as No Words.
And he's no longer this faceless voice, for those of you who are looking forward to that. Yes, initially Chris was meant to join us, but Chris, for personal reasons, had to step out, so we have Jared. So you can bombard him with questions. But yes, hi everybody.
Be a second choice.
It's it was more to give you a break. You've done one stream since quarantine, so or two. I don't remember anymore. But yes, I'm going to throw up the image of the roadmap real quick. So this is what we're talking about, folks. This is what we released last Friday. I found an absurd amount of joy releasing an updated roadmap at 5 p.m. on a Friday, just because releasing anything at 5 p.m. on a Friday normally gives community managers a heart attack, and I'm sure producers too. Yeah. But I felt that just dropping an updated roadmap that had some pretty cool news, stating what new race it was going to be, giving a timeline for the class. I felt that was pretty cool, and hopefully people have questions, and you did. Yeah, so get that out of the way. For those of you who didn't have a chance to see it, it is in the forums. I linked it on social media, so you can chase that image down. It is available publicly. We got a lot of great questions on the forum thread, but I wanted to start out with a pretty broad one, just because roadmaps, I only have to do communication ones, which are a lot smaller, and they're already pretty tedious to put together. So Matt, a lot of the work fell on you to put it all together in terms of organization and meeting with people. So how did you not only just put the get the original roadmap out of the way, but take something existing and have to shift everything around? So I guess, what's it like to put a roadmap together?
Yeah, it involves a lot of conversations with Jared and our team at large. We spend a lot of time thinking about what our ambitions are, what we want to go after, how we want to improve the product, and then we're talking throughout the organization as well. But it starts with the team, and we're constantly looking at whether we have the right set of priorities. So even when we posted the last roadmap, since then we've had the shelter-in-place order that we've dealt with. But I think that every quarter we're going to look at adjusting the roadmap regardless of the circumstances that are impacting our work. Just because, every 3-4 months we're going to be talking to our players, we're going to be assessing where things are going, and we're going to move things around. So as we post these release calendars and these roadmaps, it's a glimpse into where we want to go so that we can engage our players, all of you, and be more informed. But ultimately, there's a lot of conversation that goes behind this. I'm the one that makes the slide, but it's the team at large that's figuring out what our initiatives are and what's important. As I look at this, there's some things that have been shifting on us, and I can talk briefly about some of those high-level things. First of all, in the near term, you can see that we have a lot of small updates that are coming to you, and players are not going to have to wait for a larger module to get a lot of these updates. We're trying to be better about rolling these updates out as quickly as we can and breaking those up into smaller releases. And the other major thing that I would take away from this roadmap is that we're committed to exploring our delivery of episodic content. So if you think about Rage of Bell as an episode and the upcoming Redeemed Citadel, these are steps towards where we want to eventually go. And you'll see that if you look at the first half of 2021, we really are dedicating much more time in figuring out what is the right package for an episode release. How much stuff do we want in there? The items that you're going to see under an episode, that's not a full feature list. Those are just a few things that are punctuating what's in that episode. As we get closer, we'll be showing a lot more of all of the things that are going to make up those individual episodes. But next year is about us really looking at this idea of episodic content delivery and where we want to go with that. So that's where we're committed early next year. Jared, I don't know if you had anything more that you wanted to add on that.
No, that was pretty comprehensive. Even before we make a roadmap for the players, we spend a lot of time figuring out the best place for things to go because of resources and priorities of what we want to tackle. So even before it gets to this stage, it's a lot of meetings, a lot of work, but I think you covered it pretty well.
And meetings are Jared's favorite thing.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot. There's a lot of questions coming in. A lot of them are questions that were already in the forum thread, so we will get to them as much as possible. But one thing I did want to clarify is that there were some questions that weren't not even tangentially related to the roadmap at this point. They were very, very, very one power specific, and that's a little too granular for this. Right now we are looking at broader ones. So just to give people a heads up, I broke down the questions into categories, and I do have a miscellaneous category because there were some that were a little kind of all over the place. But there were questions about events, questions about the episodic content, questions about the new race, questions about the class, both the new class and classes in general, questions about rewards, and questions about professions. So we definitely have a lot of categories to cover. So there's a lot of questions, and hopefully we can get to all of the ones that are both live and pre-written. It started out with a lot of class questions, so I'm going to go straight to that section first, if Matt and Jared, you're okay with that. Probably bounce around a little bit, do a little bit more organically. But the first question I did see both on the stream chat, and I don't know if we're ready to answer this or not, but it's basically players wanting to know we're not going to announce what the new class is, at least I don't feel like we're ready to announce it, but players did want to announce if it was going to be like a support, DPS, or tank, or healing. Sorry. So do we want to talk about that at all in any way?
I think if we gave all the specifics there, that would certainly they'd start narrowing in pretty quick. So I guess it can be mean and say that one of the paths of the class is DPS, but I'm pretty sure everyone probably figured that. That's what's the other one.
Bomb there, no worries.
That's just, the fact that it's so far out, I think it's a little tough to talk about too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one thing I will say is we have that listed further out next year, but we're going to be talking a lot about this class in 2021. We're going to want a very long closed beta program and an open beta program. So we want the community to be involved in refining our development around this class. So you're not going to have to wait, a long time for us to start talking about this class with you.
So that's the thing as much as we're going to talk about for the new class. But just classes in general, there were a lot of specific questions about different classes: barbarians, wizards, warlocks, paladins. So I guess it showed to me that there was a lot of desire to know if we have a certain order of how we're going to continue balancing classes, make further changes. Do we have a priority list of what classes are currently in our mind that we really want to address first, or is it going to be more of a little bit of everybody at the same time? So I don't know, Jared, if you want to try to tackle that one.
Yeah, that's always a pretty big topic. So there isn't right now a set order. We did have a set order in the past because things were further spread out. The balance keeps getting closer and closer together for all the paths. I think one of our next things will probably be a little more work on the barbarian tank powers, because still a lot of players feel that's a bit behind the other tanks. For the DPS in general, it's coming down to we're trying to iron out all the bugs, because there's still a few bugs with some different powers, and we're still trying to get the second DPS classes on trees on the classes that have 2 DPS paths up to par. We've slowly been making steps on that, and we do a few changes to each thing. M19 brought more balanced changes to DPS and obviously the healing changes and all that. So we're going to keep plugging away at it. I think we are a lot closer in balance than we've been in a long time, so that's feels pretty good, but we're definitely not all the way there yet.
And I mean, for the roadmap, it's like there's no one specific area that talks about that has like balancing all the classes right here, right now. So I'm assuming we're going to continue with every release, we just continuously do updates and balancing. Correct?
Right. In the past, we had a couple updates where we specifically focused on certain parts of the classes. There was one update where we did a lot of DPS work, and we did one that had a lot of healer work. So in the past, when it was a lot more work to be done, we did approach it that way. Now it is more, okay, here's an issue, here's a power that's falling behind, and we can just tweak those as we go. So we're not holding them off for a big update to tackle them all at once. We'll just tackle them as we see them and as we can fit them in or drop.
Yeah, and that's kind of talking to the fact that this release calendar is not the kind of place where you would see that kind of stuff. As Jared says, we want to get that stuff out as quickly as possible, and release calendars are really larger releases. So whether we're making tuning adjustments or bug fixing, those are items that are often not going to show up on this. Imagine if every release looked like a patch note list, this would just be a page of noise. So we just try to use this to show high-level stuff that's coming throughout the year.
Yeah, I don't think we really want to copy and paste our Confluence page for, module overview. Yeah. Cool. So some other questions came up that I'm going to bounce back to the miscellaneous, which is Stronghold was a topic that came up a lot because a lot of players noticed that there wasn't any section discussing Stronghold updates, and Strongholds are something that a lot of people feel very passionate about. So we had questions, like the first one was, what went into the decision of not adding Strongholds to the roadmap?
So I think we've shown Strongholds on a previous long view before, because we did have it as a big target for us, because we want to make a lot of improvements there. The problem just comes down to resources. We had a whole bunch that we wanted to do, and Strongholds, the way that system was originally set up a long time ago, was, we're honest about it, was kind of hacked together. So it's a bit of I guess, a trap of a lot of work when we go in there. And so when we do finally do an update to Stronghold, it's going to have to change some of the base of it. We're going to have to improve it to work better and to be able to be upgraded easier. And so it just became a big enough task that we didn't have time for it now. It's not off our radar. It's something we talk about quite a bit. And I know another question that's come up a lot is, for example, we have some decorations still that aren't working as they should. And yeah, we do have bugs on that, and that is something we are working on. But that does kind of highlight one of the flaws of that system. Is you would expect something like that where it's, here's a new decoration, players can collect it and then they can put it up, would be pretty straightforward. But with how that was built, even that's problematic, and that's why we keep having issues with it. So it's going to be a pretty big feature when we do tackle it, and that's just why it's not on the roadmap right now.
Yeah. But to echo again, like, that doesn't mean we're not making fixes to it. just means that some of the bigger plans that we have wanted to do, we don't have on the roadmap right now.
And there was another question regarding, hopefully, probably not the answer that Stronghold fans were looking for, but it is a bigger topic. I mean, Stronghold was an actual module in itself when we released it, so it's a lot of work that goes into it. But one of the things to me that the most interesting commentary to see was people making assumptions over what the next releases are going to be. And I think the only thing I want to say to that is I just want to remind people that we're not always aligned exactly with what Wizards of the Coast does. We sometimes are, we sometimes aren't. So just going to put that out there. And Matt and Jared can chime in more if they want, but I'll continue to be amused by people's theories, but you know.
Yeah, we like the theories.
Yeah.
We like seeing what people think's happening.
Yeah.
It's good.
Mm-hmm. There was another question regarding, talking about like how the roadmap is written, which was, I think this was from Misfit Mouse, one of her community viewers, asked, why are the terms refreshed or evolved swapped around in the roadmap? Like, what's the difference between them, and how do we choose what terms to use?
I pick them out of a hat. Actually, my level of consistency may be not absolute. I've put refresh on the existing events that we run, and usually a refresh to us means we're going to take some of the rewards, some of the things that you're going after in the events, and we're going to refresh them. We're going to put new items in there. So that's our target around refreshing the events. Reworking usually means a deeper level of change. So, when we have Siege event listed here, well, we actually want to change the Siege event a lot more than what we're doing around the refreshes. So that's going to be a bigger re-release of that event. That makes sense.
So kind of going along that is one of the questions was presented as players were asking, they also saw it in chat, players were asking for stabby wheels for Avernus vehicles, like in the source material. And that got me thinking about when players ask, whenever we reveal roadmaps or talk about future updates, players often ask about either working on existing content that's right now or going back and revisiting and refining previous content. And basically, how does that balance out when we're planning out a roadmap? Because roadmap tends to imply future development, which people it's very easy to assume that it's all new stuff versus going back and doing things. So I don't know if either you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
I can dive in a little bit first. I think there's a few things there. One, it's this idea of how much do we make new and how much do we invest in refactoring, cleaning up, or generally improving the game that we have. And depending on, we do engage our players quite a bit, and we'd like to do it more in finding the right balance. And in the conversations that I've been a part of, I found that you're not going to find a universal answer. You're going to find, you're looking for patterns. And I would say that most people will agree that making a new dungeon is a good thing. We like making dungeons. It seems like our player, that's a cornerstone experience for what playing Neverwinter is all about. So we know that that's a good thing. But we also know that we have parts of content that need to be refined, that were built when we didn't understand that piece of content as much as we do now, or it's built on antiquated tech or something like that. So we do try to strike a balance of finding things that we can squeeze in that will be improvements to the game as it is, but we know that putting new content out there is very important. So we have to find this right balance. And in terms of going back to existing settings, old settings, and putting a new face on those settings, or weaving new storylines into them, that's something that we're very interested in. Going back, speaking to Avernus, that was our first real foray into the Nine Hells, and we are very keen to do more extra planar adventures. We know that those settings serve us well in terms of providing exciting places to go for end gamers. It makes them feel epic to go to that type of epic level content. So we do want to look at some of these, going to Avernus. Yeah, we want to go back there. We want to do more. We like that place. But we also have to be cognizant of players. There's a fatigue point. So we can't do it too much right now. We're going to be playing through Avernus the second half of this year with the Redeemed Citadel. We've got exciting things going on there. And then we need to find a new setting to give the players a new destination to get a break from always being in hell. So does that answer your question? Is there anything?
I mean, for me it does, but I'm sure that we'll get feedback from the community letting me know, what we didn't cover. But talking about revisiting old areas, something that is related is scaling, and that is a pretty hot topic. It continues to be. It's been a hot topic for a while now. And one of the questions was, what are the goals of scaling improvements? So, Jared, I think this is your baby.
Man, how come my questions are so open-ended? So, I guess the very end goal of scaling is that it's basically an afterthought for players. It's unobtrusive enough that you go into a queue, you're scaled down, you're not worried about it, you're not changing equipment, it's not, changing your experience from, it was a decent difficulty to it's too hard. It just kind of happens, and it's not something anybody has to worry about. We're obviously not there yet, and that speaks to some of the technical hurdles we've had getting this in the game. A lot of the questions are oftentimes, why do we even need scaling? And it's simply a fact of, we want players to be able to play a wide range of the content in the game. For example, we want them to be able to do, leveling queues, epic dungeon queues, all that kind of stuff with older content. But we still want to be able to grant important rewards like Astral Diamonds, and some of the rewards that we're talking about will give even better rewards from those chests. So we need to make sure that players aren't just gearing up and then stomping that stuff to get really important in-game rewards and in-game currency. And so by having scaling in, that allows us to let players play a wide range of the game and still work to earn those types of rewards. We are continuing to work on that. We have, I think the roadmap shows that we have a next step coming up during this year that I think that we're going to try to improve it to the next step. And hopefully by the time we get to M20, that'll be all finished and final. This time around, it's going to be a little bit bigger of a step, and so our plan right now is that we're going to get it in place, and we're going to get it on preview, and have it on preview for hopefully a few months, so at least so that players can be testing it not on live, can get a feel for it, we can make improvements to it, and then finally roll it out once everyone's comfortable with it, which is not something we've been able to take the time to approach in that way in the past. This time we specifically set up our release schedule and our build schedule so we could approach it that way, because we know how disruptive it can be when a new scaling change shows up on live. So hopefully this time around it'll get us that much closer to the end, and it will be a better experience for everyone with how the rollout goes.
Someone in chat asked any Stowe info, and I'm sorry, no, that's this is all Neverwinter. This is the game with the better dinosaurs, so I don't have any information on Stowe. You can bother Ambassador Kale. I think he has a stream on Wednesday, so. But no, today is dedicated to the Neverwinter roadmap. So you mentioned rewards a few times, and definitely the chat picked up on that. And there were a couple questions specifically regarding rewards and how they're reflected in the roadmap. And one of the ones was, what's the difference between improved dungeon rewards and better reward drops?
Part of that is how Matt likes to word things. But the improved dungeon rewards is what we're coming up with soon. Could probably talk a little bit about it, because it's not, I don't think it's not something that has to be a big secret. As some players have noticed over the years, when you open a dungeon chest, sometimes you can get what we would consider basically a premium item out of it, something that you might generally get out of a lockbox or the Zen store. That system needed a lot of improvement so that players would actually see stuff more often and that there were a more interesting selection of rewards. And so that's really what that first part is we're taking that system that's always kind of been there in the background and improving it quite a bit so players can start to see more meaningful stuff in all of their end chests. Right now it doesn't apply to the leveling queue, but it applies to all the other queues. The later stuff, the new event reward system, there's not a lot that I think we could go into that yet, but we're basically starting to explore some ideas on special rewards that would come out during an event that would be a type of event that would get community working together and trading items to create or earn the best items you can from the event. So we're still working a lot of that out, and there's still a lot of details we want to finalize before we go into that deeper, but that's a pretty quick rundown of the two differences.
And then the third one, actually, when she's referring to the better reward drops, Jared, that's part of M21, so it's just wrapped up into all the stuff we're doing there. So that's
so many rewards.
That's what that. Yep.
So that last one is more of a continuation on the improvement of critter and dungeon chest rewards. We know a lot of players are, not the happiest with where those have been, and so as you can see, says it's in a few places in the roadmap, we're working to get all those improved over time in different stages. So hopefully everyone will just be happier with the overall rewards by the time we get to the last one in M21.
Yeah.
Cool. There are two paths we can take. I'm going to choose the professions one to kind of piggyback off that, and because when we talk about rewards, people often bring up like masterwork professions and the difference, the viability of one over the other and how useful some are. So one of the questions was what is going to be in the professions update versus masterwork update? Why is masterwork pushed back by several months?
Masterwork is another one of those things that is more work than it seems, which is why it's been pushed off as many times as it has. I've, in a couple streams, been saying that hopefully we'd get Masterwork soon, so that shows how even when we're preparing for it, sometimes it just gets bumped back. Because of that, we wanted to do a smaller update first, so players weren't waiting this long to have useful items from professions. I guess saying this will cause people to stock up, but that's fine. So for the small update with episode 3 there on Redeem Citadel, that is a plan to take the highest tier, switch it to level 80 gear, improve the item level, and improve the stats, so that players have competitive gear coming out of professions. And then the Masterwork profession update the plan is to actually add new tiers, new stuff, some new quests. So that's the bigger actual update to the system.
There's another question which is profession update related to the current CDP, and then there was another question about CDP in stream chat. So I'm gonna take the stream chat one first, which is someone asking about we're testing out something new for the CDP, which was quality of life this time around, going into phases and breaking it down, and we're still testing out that new system and seeing if it allows us to be better organized and address things better. So right now, I don't really have an answer on further improvements because we're still evaluating how this one ran. But then the question about is profession update related to the current CDP, the quality of life improvements, that I wasn't exactly sure how to decipher that one because I feel like there are definitely quality of life improvements we can make to professions, but professions themselves aren't a quality of life aspect of the game. So I don't know if you want to talk about where do profession updates or professions in general fit in the grand scheme of the game.
Yeah, I could do that. I think their question might have been, did our upcoming changes stem from the CDP on quality of life updates? And in that case, I would say not this round of updates. Anything you see on the roadmap that's within the next few months, we've been already working on that. We've been planning it, even as much as 6 months or a year ago. So stuff that comes out of the CDP would be further down the road as we take that in and we review all the stuff and decide what our plan to tackle it is. So it's not that this professions update isn't considering the CDP, it's just that it happened prior to that, so we'll be taking that feedback in and using it for future updates on professions.
Cool. I'm going to bounce it over to Matt for a little bit. and which is we're talking about the new race, ASMR, the angelic-looking the race. And start off with a question of what parameters are there for choosing a new race. So when we're talking about what race to create, what parameters do we use? And one of the specific things they ask is why didn't they have lycanthropes when we released Barovia or Tabaxi when we released M13? So I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, race, I think that anybody that's been playing the game for a while knows that we didn't come out with new races for quite a long time. We had a bunch up front, and then I think part of the reason was we just didn't feel that it was something that players were really asking for, so we didn't put it on our immediate radar. When we started developing a new race, when we eventually did that, we actually were developing one that proved problematic, and then we shifted. And when we came out with the Gith race, we were fairly pleased. Not that it's a main driver for players or that it generates revenue or anything like that. It's more that it got back to the heart of what Cryptic games usually do very well, and that is provide extensive customization options for players when they're creating their place in that world. And that one, I think, helped us understand that we could develop these races without it being a huge cost investment, because we could be more ambitious on the race front, and that's going to take some effort from some other thing. And if we were to do a survey, my guess right now is that people would not put a new race very highly on that list of asks. So when we looked at doing another race, the designer around the Redeemed Citadel was just talking about how this race really tied into what was going on in the world. We are about evolving our world and making that world and the evolution of that world tie into what we're presenting back to players. So we did that with Gith when we were doing with the Illithid and the Gith and showing that conflict. It kind of tied into what we had going on in the world at that time, and we're doing the same thing here. In terms of what we want to provide the player, we want a high level of customization options because that's where we think we shine as a studio. That said, we haven't always felt like we should invest in new races, so maybe that's why you haven't seen one in a long time. And the other thing I would say is something like a transformation. We did actually talk about that. But we decided that the number of things, creative decisions, or things we'd have to work through, we didn't know that that's really where players wanted us to invest our time. So if we see that people want more and more races, and it sounds like that's a large thing that players are clamoring for, we'll invest more effort in that. We'd be happy to do it. We can do it. It's just about trying to read the landscape and understand where we spend our resources to make our players happy.
So one last question about the ASMR race, and that is players wanted to know what the unlock is going to be like. The Gith had an unlock, like if you were VIP, you got to have an early access to it. So players wanted to know if we had a plan for how players going to unlock the race, and also there were questions about visuals. I think that we'll leave for future dates if we get into a more solid place. But there were also questions about stats and bonuses, like the Dragonborn. A lot of people use Dragonborn because for them it's the best in terms of stats. So can we give any information now on either unlock or how stats-wise how this new race is going to work?
We have the stats. I don't have them off the top of my head, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. So we could probably do a follow-up on that one.
Okay.
For the unlock, it's going to be part of the Redeemed Citadel. It's going to be, I believe, a capstone reward for that if you complete all the phases and do the extra stuff. So make sure to look towards that new event coming up to see where it comes from.
Cool. And that is actually a great segue for episodic content, Redeem Citadel. So we're going to jump into that. One of the first questions was, I love the very generic, can we talk about Redeem Citadel? Yes, we can talk a little bit about it, and then just a heads up, folks, it will be a blog coming out later this week, which will cover the first part of it. So there will definitely be more information coming out for that. But one of the questions was, will the Redeem Citadel event require to run Zariel's challenge in the current or normal mode in order to progress through get best rewards? So basically,
I do not believe that you have to do the trial at all for the redeemed. It's mainly stuff within the Avernus zone. So.
Okay. And then episodic content in general. So one of the questions was, will episodes provide team-oriented content? So is it people working together, or is it going to be a solo adventure?
Absolutely.
So team adventure?
Yep.
And then this other question was, the episodes for M20 are about 2 months apart, and they were reduced to 2 episodes from 4. So is the time difference because of there's going to be more content per episode? Did production come in and put down the hammer or chisel, I guess, in this case? Was it just to give it more time to polish the release? Or how would you explain the differences in the episodes for M20?
Yeah, I think I touched on this a little bit, but I can talk about it a little bit more. We are trying to find what an episode really should be for Neverwinter. And when we built Rage of Bell, that was our first. We're dipping our toes into it a bit, we got a lot of great feedback from that one. And with Redeem Citadel, this is not, we started with it as one large episode. And essentially it's still that, but it's broken into 4 stages the whole idea is that you're evolving this headquarters that they're trying to start, they're using as a foothold in Avernus to wage this war against the fiends of the Blood War. So, and through your actions, you're helping establish this base of operations. And so the designers really did a fantastic job of figuring out how that evolved over time. But I think that as we look to next year, we want to continue this idea that the world is evolving on you. But we also want each individual episode to have a certain amount of content that's kind of contained and themed in a new way. We want that new episode to feel like, Chris calls it a new TV episode, right? Like we've got a season of things going on, but I'm excited to go watch that new TV episode. And in talking about it, we felt like we needed a bit more content in there. So we've been looking at how to frame that. Now, if you look at it, it feels to some people, because of how they're looking at this chart, that it's spaced out more, but that's a 2-month gap right there, which is much tighter than the 4-month gaps we've had between modules in the past. So what we're trying to do is go, okay, we could take longer and make these episodes bigger, or do we want more consistent drops so the world's more regularly evolving? And those are the levers we're playing with right now to kind of figure out, okay, what's the right combination of all those things in terms of the player experience.
Cool. And then, so another kind of shifting topics pretty drastically. Hold on, I lost my chat window. There you go. There was a lot of questions about mounts and stuff of the sort, so I'm going to bounce that one to Jared and see if he wants to talk about that in any way.
Please do.
I mean, what do people want to know about mounts?
I don't know. What do you think they want to know about mounts?
So, yeah, I think one of the big questions is, what about mythic mounts? Because we, may have accidentally let players see something that looked like a mythic mount. I will say that, yes, there is mount work going on. It may be soon. It may be a bit of a surprise. but the mythic part of it and coming to, being able to go up to mythic rank is really, I would say, the smallest part of the update. So I will tease people with that and say that I think in about 2 weeks we're probably going to put out a big blog about all that mount stuff. So there'll be plenty to read about.
Yep. As I stated in the forum thread, that, you might get a couple answers today that are. Hold on for, one of the things was going to be later this week, which is Redeem Citadel information, and the other one was, a couple weeks, because we would definitely want to make sure that when we present the information, it's not just sound bites that people can then take out of context to say if they missed the stream or if they came in late during the stream, which, it does happen that people come in late and miss a whole bubble around it, and so we definitely want to give it, the big solid chunk of information out there, and have Jared available for, questions and follow-ups in a forum thread.
Yep.
But yes, so thank you for taking that one on. Another one is that I'm seeing a lot is questions about events and how they're going to be reworked. So, one of the things that our roadmap states is event refreshes. So when we talk about refreshes, how different are we talking about? Like, are we talking about is it just a visual revamp, a rewards revamp, a systems revamp? Like, when we're changing events, what are we talking about? Or revamping events, refreshing?
So I'd say that, looking at this, I think we've been pretty consistent that refresh there'll be new rewards, there may be a new potential for new quests, that kind of stuff with Masquerade of Liars. There's usually, a new mask that people can fight over which one's going to win. When we say reworked is when we're going in and kind of revamping the big systems and changing, core parts of it. So anytime they see refresh, it's more of expect the event that you for the most part, but we'll have some new rewards, we'll have maybe have a new thing or two for you to do, but most of it is still in that same theme, same setup that you're used to.
Will the new events be equipment gated or scaled so that more players can use new characters?
Yeah, that's actually a more interesting question than probably seems on the surface. One of the things that we're trying to tackle with the scaling is also helping people play content that they're not ready to, specifically for events, because events are around for a short time. So with the next setup of scaling adjustments, we want to be able to have something, say even like Hell Pit, which is meant to be a bit higher item level and a bit harder to do, that low item level players can go into it, get scaled up, and actually have a very decent time competing and getting it done. And so that is one of the big parts we're working towards with scaling, and hopefully when we get that all in place, it works out nice, and then we'll have those events open to a much greater group of people.
Cool. Sorry for the distraction, folks. Got my kid here. So there were questions about, one of the concerns was, will the upcoming events just give an advantage to best in slot players, which I think you kind of talked that on a surface level. But there is a concern whenever we talk about refreshing any content that it's basically we're making it all end game, and I think we want to alleviate people's concerns that you don't have to be end game to participate in all the events.
Yeah, I think outside of Tales of Old was probably the main event that was actually targeting the true endgame players, and that was intentional at the time because we were looking for some content to give to those players to actually challenge them. For the most part, our events are intended to not just be for the best in slot and the pure endgame, and we're working to open that up even more. I think we tend to save the true endgame stuff more for trials, and the newest dungeon typically is a bit harder, but I wouldn't even say that's best in slot. So I think most of the game we do try to make sure that best in slot isn't required to do most of the fun stuff you want to do.
Questions from the chat saying, will these events all come to console? Yeah, so this roadmap we laid out is reflecting PC. That whatever updates that PC is getting, console will also get. So as far as I'm aware, there's no difference in the roadmap, just timeline. So we're presenting, the timeline we're presenting is the one that's going to be for PC. Yep. And then you mentioned people have mentioned Tales of Old come up, and we frequently get requests for it to come back, especially those who keep missing out on the Storyteller's Journal. So do we know if we're going to bring back Tales of Old, or if we're going to try to do modified versions of it, or?
I don't think we know yet. I think there's also the possibility, and this is not a guarantee or promise, that the artifact could potentially end up being, come from a different source. Maybe we even could try putting it outside of an event like a Zen Store, Wonder Bazaar, or something else. And I think that's really when people are talking about the event, that's what they're after, is the artifact. So it could be that we don't necessarily bring back Tales of Old, but we bring back the artifact. So there's a lot of options there.
So we're going to shift again, and it came up during the chat earlier, and it was also asked as well, which is, why is the new adventure system all the way at the end of the roadmap? And the question that was in the chat was, can we talk about more of the new adventure system, like what plans we have around it?
I think I can answer that at a very high level. When we look at M21 next year, I think that it will be interesting to hear what people think about it when we roll out more information. We're certainly, as we say on the roadmap, we're streamlining the leveling experience. I personally have my own gripes about the quest system and how it bounces from one quest to the next, and that continuity of themed experience. I think that something for our veteran players to take away, because a lot of this feels like it's aimed at new players, and we hear that feedback some. And for me, I think about this a little bit differently. I think that, something that's really important to playing Neverwinter is this idea of queuing up for a dungeon and jumping in with people and playing that dungeon. And we get a lot of feedback about that pickup group experience. I think as game developers, we look at that and go, we have to own that problem as much as anyone. If people are feeling that the party that they're grouping up with, the adventurer next to them is not well equipped, or they're missing important pieces of information on how to play the game, that's on us, I think. So M21 in a lot of ways for us is a way for us to create a healthier and better informed, hopefully better engaged community where we're getting people to end game with better equipment, better understanding of the game, and that's going to translate to better experiences with the people around you in these group content situations. So we've known for a while that we really need to take another stab at how we inform people of what's important, how to play this game, and how to get them through the grind of leveling to the epic level content where we think the game shines in a different way. So M21 is our we're focused on achieving a lot of those goals. The adventure system, that improvement of how do I move through this content, like how is it connected, what is my journal telling me as I go from one quest to the next, how do we create that continuity? It's kind of tied to the work that we're doing there. So a lot of those things are actually connected in a way that may not be easily apparent on the outside, but there's a lot of work being put into streamlining the entire experience that gets players to epic level content.
Another question, which kind of ties in, which was also asked in the stream chat, which someone mentioned that we had a couple of years ago, we had something called Rocktober, which is the bug bashing month. We spent the month of October just, taking care of a lot of bugs. And this is something that has come up as a request numerous times. So do we think that we'll have time to do something similar? Maybe not a full month, but a couple weeks, or especially as if you're talking about M21 being something that us being able to refine and address what players want and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I thought Rocktober was a great thing for us. I think that the way we are approaching work is a little different in that we are trying we're trying to be more responsive. So when we were working on Rocktober, we were definitely on very tight module to module cadence. And I think that, as you can see in this roadmap, we are trying to be far more responsive and attack problems and deploy those improvements or those corrections much quicker than we did in the past. So, not saying that something like Rocktober wouldn't be great, but I feel like as a team we're organized to attack these things a little more aggressively than we were at that time. So, I guess the short answer is we're not waiting for a big kind of chunk of time to go tackle a lot of things. But we can certainly look at that, and there may be a period of time where we go, let's just dedicate this to these types of improvements, and we're just carving out time for that.
Yeah, I think we've definitely seen a shift in how we address issues. We're definitely trying to be more on the ball and stuff, but more responsive to player feedback. And I kind of want to reassure players that we were also trying to do that in terms of communicating game development, which is why earlier this year we had the initial reveal of roadmap, which I don't think we've ever done before. Then when we saw that the roadmap was shifting and we needed, things are changing, we're having this stream today, and just reassure players that as things continue to evolve and if there's more shifts, then we'll keep folks up to date, and we'll have more of these streams, showcase more updated roadmaps. So, we hope that things don't have to change a lot more, and the world stabilizes a bit more. But
it's worth calling out that for people that don't know, that's Julia riding my ass or riding our ass. Is going, hey, you know what? Our players they deserve this information. Go make it happen. So a nod to Julia for pushing these agendas on behalf of the players. Because you guys probably don't see that very often.
It's a chain reaction. The players let me know what they want, and I'm the messenger. But yeah, it's all a group effort. Yes, I only have 5 more minutes, honey. Sorry, I got my kid. She has a 45-minute timer for me of patience. But we do have a few more minutes left. Sorry, guys. But we did have a question that came up both in written form and in the chat, which is accessibility. And we've talked about accessibility in different forms. We've talked about how accessible the content is to players, but the other one is the purer form of accessibility is things like for color blindness or hard of hearing or vision issues. So that's something that players have been requesting a lot, and I don't know if that's something that we would slot into a roadmap or if it's something that we would over time make small adjustments.
I don't know any reason why we wouldn't. So a lot of our litmus test for whether things go on the plan for us is there a need in our community, in our players? Does the product just feel like it needs it? So yeah, if there is a need, we want to hear about it.
Yeah, it's a topic that's come out a lot, and I think it also involves work from other teams, not just the Neverwinter team, because it is a tech thing. So it would probably involve work from the core infrastructure team, which is a shared team. But I did want to acknowledge that question did come up because it is important. So we have about 6 minutes left. So a lot of questions by now in the chat have become more granular about various class-specific or smaller things. As I've mentioned before, I do a chat poll, and if there's questions that I missed, we'll take a look. I'll send them over to Jared for him to answer. But is there anything else you two wanted to mention, talk about, things that maybe we didn't cover? I tried to bounce over all the questions. I think I got most of them, but if there's anything I missed or that you wanted to talk about, feel free.
A lot of players asked about the wizard balance. They're not going to like the answer in that, yeah, wizards did get, I guess a slight nerf. I don't generally like to use the term nerf. It's more of a balance, but slight nerf because they were very overpowered compared to others, and other classes have had a buff, and that's shifted around the ranks a little bit. That's not to say Wizard is going to stay exactly where it is, but it's also not considered to be in a place that it can't do the game. So we are always looking at the balance. There's always classes that players say are the worst, and everyone has their own opinions, and we do look at all that. But yes, we understand that Wizards got a bit of a nerf to fix a couple balance issues, and we are always continuing to look at the DPS classes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt,
The thing I would add is, for us, again, this is us trying to figure out episodic content and what our delivery should be of that content. So as we go into Redeem Citadel and we go planned for early next year, we want your feedback. We want to know whether the releases themselves feel satisfying, whether the amount that's in our individual release feels good, whether there's enough progression without it being grindy. We'll take any feedback you got on how we're delivering these releases, and we'll want to continue to have that conversation with you until we get it right.
oh my goodness, now it's my cat. I think that's time from between my cat and my child. I think we're going to start wrapping up. But yes, folks, I know there's some stuff we didn't get to, but thank you everybody for tuning in. We do have more streams planned. I definitely want to get Doug Astrodal in for a stream when we release the episode of content. I chose to do one post-release because we wanted to get player feedback first, and maybe he could answer some player feedback live. But definitely thanks to Jared and to Matt for joining me, and thanks for Chris for being on the chat, and other folks on the team in the chat. This is it's always and every time we have changes that we have to announce, we know that not everyone's going to be happy, but we are trying, and thanks everybody for kind of staying with us, and hopefully we get to experience the cool stuff coming in the future. So thank you everybody, and we'll see you hopefully soon. Bye. In the next episode. Bye.